Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is warning that today's long airport security lines are, quote, child's play compared to what we'll see if lawmakers can't agree on a way to fund the Department of Homeland Security. National correspondent Skylar Henry spoke with frustrated travelers at America's busiest airport in Atlanta. Skylar, good evening.
Hey, Tony, good evening to you. 34 days into this partial shutdown, TSA officers are frustrated as checkpoints across the country are closed tonight at certain airports, including one here in Atlanta. Others are buckling with the surge of travelers.
It's hurry up and wait at the nation's airports as flyers were greeted with another day of long lines, and TSA officers continue to work without receiving their pay.
Yeah, the airport doesn't run without them.
Staffing shortages shut down several checkpoints at airports in Houston and Philadelphia, leading to lines that snaked around the concourse.
I don't know what the holdup is, but these people need to get paid.
While in Atlanta, hour-long lines had flyers frustrated Congress's.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Martinez, and what I'm about to share with you today shows that something in America, something very fundamental, very deep-rooted, is literally falling apart. Imagine this. You wake up early in the morning, pack your suitcase, and head to the airport with your family to catch a flight. Spring break, Easter vacation, maybe a business trip. And what awaits you? Security lines stretching for miles. Over 2.5 hours of wait time at Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta. Security checkpoints completely closed at Houston George Bush Intercontinental. In Philadelphia, the security line has spilled out of the building. People are waiting outside, and you still don't know why. Or do you? Here's that horrifying detail. This chaos at American airports isn't an accident. It isn't negligence. It's the tangible, real-world consequences of a political chess battle in Washington that's spilling into the lives of ordinary Americans, and now President Trump has taken a step, the seismic repercussions of which haven't fully been felt yet. As of Monday morning, Trump has deployed ICE agents, yes, you heard that right, immigration enforcement agents, to American airports. Leading the effort is border czar Tom Homan. But is this really a solution? Or is it a snapshot of the desperation created by an increasingly deepening political crisis? Today, I'll give you the real answer to that question. And I promise, the behind-the-scenes details the mainstream media hasn't shared with you are all laid out on the table today. This story actually began on February 14th. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, ran out of funds. Congress failed to reach an agreement on funding DHS, and the agency partially shut down. And among those affected were 61,000 TSA employees, the people who ensure airport security, the people manning the X-ray machines, the ones who check your bags, scan your shoes, and make sure you board the plane safely. These people have been working without pay for over 36 days. So why did this crisis start? Here's where the story goes far beyond a simple budget dispute. At the root of the DHS shutdown is the Democrats' demand for reform within ICE and the Customs and Border Protection Agency. The direct trigger for this demand was the killing of 2 U.S. citizens by federal agents in Minneapolis. In the wake of these events, Democrats launched a push for ICE reform, an end to masked raids, a ban on racial profiling, and no arrests without judicial approval. Among the reforms demanded by Democrats were an end to what they termed arbitrary arrests, a ban on ICE agents wearing masks, and the elimination of racial profiling. Republicans, however, stood firm against these demands like a concrete wall. Either the entire DHS is funded or nothing. And so TSA employees found themselves right in the middle of this political clash, unpaid and helpless. Now let's talk numbers, because these figures are truly staggering. Saturday marked the day with the highest daily absenteeism rate across the country. Over 3,250 TSA employees did not show up for work. Since the shutdown began, over 400 TSA officers have resigned. And this number is growing every day, because people cannot continue going to work simply out of patriotism when they cannot afford to feed their children or put gas in their cars. For 6 days last week, the TSA absenteeism rate remained above 9%. On Monday, that rate rose above 11%, reaching the highest level nationwide since the shutdown began. 2.5-hour lines in Atlanta, closed checkpoints in Houston, lines spilling out onto the streets in Philadelphia. This is a sign of a systemic collapse. And in Congress, it's as if nothing is happening. Republicans in the Senate made their fifth attempt to reopen DHS and failed again. Both sides are blaming each other, and in the meantime, Americans are paying the price by waiting at airports. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer made a very interesting move here. He proposed a separate bill just to pay TSA workers. He wanted to keep ICE out of the equation. Makes sense, right? But no, that was blocked too. Schumer made an unusual procedural move to advance a bill to fund the TSA by suspending Senate rules. The vote was 49 to 41. Given that 60 votes are required, this proposal was overwhelmingly blocked along party lines. Schumer's proposal for a special budget for the TSA hit a Republican wall. Why? Because for Republicans, this was an attempt to reopen the DHS without funding ICE, which is unacceptable to them. And now we come to the most critical point. What is ICE doing at airports? Trump issued a clear ultimatum on Truth Social on Saturday. If Congress can't agree, I'll send ICE agents to airports. He officially announced this on Sunday morning. Trump wrote in his social media post, "On Monday, ICE will go to airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who are staying on the job." Trump also blamed Democrats for the impasse, and border Czar Tom Homan outlined this plan on CNN's State of the Union. Homan said, "We'll be at airports tomorrow, helping TSA move this line forward." He noted that ICE would provide support in tasks such as manning exit gates to direct TSA agents to security screenings. But here's where a truly striking contradiction emerged. Homan said ICE agents would not be standing at X-ray machines because they aren't trained for that. But Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was saying something entirely different. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy told ABC News that ICE agents would assist in security screening operations. "They use the same type of security machines at the southern border," Duffy said. "They operate similar devices." Homan says, "I won't put them at the X-ray machines." Duffy says, "They know how to use these machines." Which version will you believe? Both cannot be true at the same time, and this contradiction captures the essence of this chaos. There is no plan. There is no clear definition of authority. As of Sunday evening, it was still unclear which airports would be targeted. Homan said, "By the end of the day, we'll have a plan. We'll determine which airports to start with and where to send them." This is still an ongoing process. Security nightmare or political maneuver? So the real question here is, will ICE agents actually make airports safer? The answer is crystal clear from security experts. No, it actually creates the opposite risk. TSA Union President Everett Kelly's statement is striking. ICE agents are neither trained nor certified in aviation security. TSA officers undergo months of training to identify explosives, weapons, and threats specifically designed to evade detection at checkpoints. You can't expect this from people trying to replace experienced staff. Former TSA Administrator John Pistole, meanwhile, described the worst-case scenario to Axios. Pistole's definition of the worst-case scenario was this: an untrained screener misses a threat and a terrorist exploits that gap to board the plane. Pistole also warned that conflicts could arise at checkpoints between ICE agents and hostile passengers. And consider this: a trained TSA officer must recertify even after a 30-day medical leave. ICE, however, is arriving at airports tomorrow morning. Former TSA Administrator Pistole said, "If I were boarding a flight tomorrow, I'd want to know that the people doing the screening are qualified and that this isn't their first day on the job." So, what will ICE agents use this opportunity for? Homan's statement here is also noteworthy. Homan noted that ICE always conducts immigration enforcement at airports and that this will not change. Trump, meanwhile, wrote in a previous Truth Social post that ICE agents would arrest undocumented immigrants and focus particularly on Somali nationals. So it's now clear this isn't just a queue reduction operation, it's an immigration enforcement operation. And this operation will take place at airports where American vacation and travel traffic is at its peak. This is part of what we call the death by a thousand cuts process. a gradual, systematic transformation that becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. Hold on a second. This narrative will only grow in the coming days. And we're here to track every development, every detail, every behind the scenes move. If you don't want to miss this kind of analysis, subscribe now because the end of this story hasn't been written yet. If you're reading this development as just another news item, you're missing the bigger picture. Here's what's happening. One of America's most established institutions, the TSA, has been operating without pay for over 40 days. And the proposed solution is to fill this void with an enforcement agency that has a completely different training and mission. This isn't just a management blunder, it's a deliberate political choice. This shutdown marks the third budget impasse in the past 6 months, during which TSA employees haven't been paid. It follows last year's historic 43-day full shutdown and the brief budget impasse in January. This is the third blow for American workers. And each time, the same cycle repeats. Congress hits an impasse, the shutdown begins, TSA workers continue working without pay or resign, chaos grows, and politicians blame each other. But this time, there's a difference. This time, ICE was deployed to airports as a solution, and this signals an institutional shift. Democrats at a crossroads, reform or chaos. So where do Democrats stand in this equation? Schumer described the deployment of ICE to airports as disturbing. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, however, used very sharp language on CNN. Jeffries said, "The last thing Americans need is the deployment of untrained ICE agents to airports across the country, potentially to harm people or, in some cases, kill them." The Flight Attendants Union also condemned this move in strong terms. The Flight Attendants Association (CWA) said the administration has chosen to create chaos at our airports instead of trying to pay security officers. This latest threat of an ICE invasion is yet another retreat from solutions that protect Americans. But here, we must also ask the Democrats, if you're truly serious about paying TSA workers, why have you blocked the DHS funding bill 5 times? This paradox is raising more and more questions in the public eye. There are two paths out of this deadlock for Democrats. Either the White House takes concrete steps to seriously restrict ICE, which current signs do not indicate, or Democrats can no longer withstand the pressure, and time is running out. Senators plan to head into a 2-week Easter recess at the end of the month. Senate Majority Leader Thune has threatened to keep senators in Washington if the issue isn't resolved. This amounts to a political point of no return. If Congress goes on recess and DHS remains shut down, this means the nation's most critical security agency could be left without funding until May. Look, I'm not going to give you a black and white story here. This crisis shows that both sides have reached a deadlock with no real accountability. On one side, Republicans insist on linking the TSA to immigration policy. Holding TSA workers hostage to fund ICE may be a political strategy, but it affects millions of ordinary Americans. On the other side, Democrats are weighing their commitment to ICE reforms while also being accountable to their base. The deaths in Minneapolis were real. The demands for accountability regarding ICE were real, but making TSA workers pay the price for this showdown? That's real too. And now ICE agents have entered the middle of this equation, untrained, with an unclear plan, a controversial mission. The noose is truly tightening. Justice moves slowly, but justice, stability, or deeper institutionalization, the answer to this question will take shape at airport security checkpoints in the coming days. Pistole's final warning keeps echoing in my mind. The worst-case scenario for this operation is an untrained screener missing a threat, resulting in a terrorist boarding a plane. This isn't an abstract political debate. It's a matter of life and death. And now, the question I must ask you is this. Do you think ICE agents at airports actually enhance security? Or is this a tool the administration is using to expand its power amid a budget crisis? Write your answer below. I read every comment. And subscribe, because this story isn't over yet. It's far from over.